All right, here we go. So we're with Scott Bullock, who's won 6 state championships. Is that right?
Yes.
6 state championships, and 4 of them were in a row, which is just amazing. Plus, he's in the Final Four every year. He's just somebody that I 1,000% look up to as a coach, as a friend, as a brother. And I want to get some questions, and I think some of these questions will help a lot of young coaches and a lot of old coaches as well, and a lot of business leaders and everything on how to run a program and how to run an organization. So some of these are kind of personal when we first start, but it says, what comes to mind when you think about growing up in Torrington, Wyoming?
Well, first thing I could say all those same things about you, Joe. You're somebody that I look up to and have been a great sounding board for me and a mentor and just have, really enjoyed our friendship. And I think of you as a brother as well. So growing up in Torrington, Wyoming, man, I had a great childhood. I really did. I lost my mom when I was only 6 years old. She passed away, and right around that same time too, my brother, who was kind of my hero, he was 8 years older than me, was diving into a little swimming hole out on a friend's farm and broke his neck and was paralyzed from the neck down. And so there was some tragedy, there was some adversity for sure for my family to go through, but I don't look back on it as a negative thing at all. I had a tremendous childhood. I think the town of Torrington kind of raised me. It was kind of a town of 5,000. Couldn't have been more fortunate to grow up in a small town where everybody knew everybody. And and then my brother, because he was a good athlete, started coaching us in Little League and Babe Ruth and everything after he broke his neck. So being able to develop that relationship and learn really from the toughest person I've ever met, as well as the most loving and caring person that I've ever had in my life, really was a difference maker, for me growing up. But loved growing up small town Wyoming. See, I got my Wyoming t-shirt on today. Firm believer that the world needs more cowboys. And I think that the San Diego Padres' new uniforms are by far the best in baseball. We've had that conversation, Joe. But great childhood, and wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, obviously, I would love for my brother to be able to walk and do the things he wanted to do, and I'd love to grow up in a house where I had a mom. But I learned so much from it too.
So when you talk about being a kid up in Torrington, what was it like? Some of the favorite things that you used to do with your buddies and stuff besides play sports?
Yeah, well, we did. We played ball every day, all day, honestly. The cool thing about Torrington and growing up in Torrington in the late 70s and early 80s really was the fact that, I mean, you could leave your house at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and get home at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, and your parents never had to worry about you. So we were constantly on our bikes finding different ball games, whether it was basketball, baseball, football, going to the swimming pool. I mean, you name it. I was the bat boy for the Legion team. I was the ball boy for the junior college basketball team. I just, if there was something sports going on, I was involved. And a lot of those people had a huge influence, like I said earlier, in raising me.
And what did you like to do in high school? What did you guys do in high school?
To be honest with you, I was a pretty good kid in high school. I wasn't a very good student. I wish I was a better student. But it's typical small town stuff, a lot of driving up and down Main Street, looking for some people to hang out with. I didn't get in a lot of trouble. I didn't make a lot of bad decisions around drugs or alcohol, things like that. I was pretty focused on athletics, and it was, just a typical, I think, small town, high school life. I think probably the coolest thing about growing up in Torrington, and I used to officiate high school basketball, and I see this in Eastern Colorado too. The cool thing about it is, that high school sports are really the only game in town, and the town and the students and everybody just has great energy around high school sports. And, it was just a lot of fun because that energy, that school spirit, because we were a one high school town, it was just cool to be a part of. Yeah. Got to feel like a pretty big deal, honestly.
Uh,
And I see that too when I go out to Eaton or go out to Yuma and officiate basketball. It's been a few years since I officiated basketball, but I got to see that a little bit in eastern Colorado towns as well.
yeah, and
Yeah.
there's something to be said about that too. How special that is when you're that age.
Yeah.
Do, what do you remember? You mentioned your mom, Scott. What do you remember most about your mom and dad? What kind of lessons did they teach you?
You know what? Unfortunately, I mean, my mom passed away. I was only 6 years old. I don't have a lot of memories of my mom, which I wish I did. They're, I just know that in talking to my sisters and everything else that she was just an unbelievably caring person and kind of ran the show in our house and was a great mother. And I'm the youngest of four kids, so my older siblings definitely remember my mom better than me. My dad was tough. My dad grew up without a dad, and so I don't think he really had that person to kind of show him what a dad does exactly. And when it came to sports and failure, he was pretty hard on me. So there's some things definitely that and I love my dad. I'm not trying to badmouth him at all. Once again, I had a great childhood and I learned a ton from him. But he was tough. I think I might have learned more about what not to do with my own children than what to do when it comes to my dad. Now, my brother, completely different story. He really had a big hand in raising me and was extremely supportive.
And what was your age difference between you and your brother?
8
8
years.
years.
So, yeah, he broke his neck. He was 14. He's just getting ready to go to the Babe Ruth All-Star State Tournament, was fired up about it. Back then, we grew up working for my dad. My dad was an electrical contractor, ran Bullock Electric in Torrington for 54 years. And, Dino worked all day, went to baseball practice, and then him and his buddies were like, hey, let's go hit the swimming hole. It's about 8 miles outside of Torrington. And, next day was Babe Ruth State Tournament. And the place that he dove in and he broke his neck, him and his buddies dove there all the time. So they really don't know what happened that particular time, whether the water was down a little bit because it was an irrigation pond. So not sure exactly what happened. But yeah, it was the day before the All-Star tournament. And kind of losing my train. What was the question originally?
I was just asking you how old he was, how much older he was.
Yeah.
So he kind of really took on your mentor role as a person growing up. He was kind of your mentor.
Big time, Joe. He really was. And not to take anything away from my two older sisters, they were great. Like I said, my dad was tough, but he was great. But my brother was really the one who I think had the biggest hand in developing the person and coach that I am today. He was 8 years older than me, and he spent about a year at Craig Hospital down in Inglewood, which a lot of people are familiar with, and then he came back home and started up with high school and was the little league coach for the Mets in Torrington and drafted me as a 9-year-old, and I got to play for him all the way up till I was 15 and play Legion. So we had an unbelievable bond, and not a day goes by. Passed away in 2011 at the age of 48, and not a day goes by that I don't think about him and the just the difference he made in my life.
And when I watch you coach, because when you coach, I don't really pay much attention to the game, to be honest with you. I pay more attention to watching you coach and how you interact with people and the kids and all that stuff. When you coach, you feel like he's with you all the time? Like a lot of the stuff you're doing is a direct reflection of what he taught you and what he showed you?
No question. I think we're both very, and this, very competitive people. We're both intense people. We're both, but we also both have a heart that's very loving and caring, and just care a lot about the people that are in our lives. And I think that's how I try to approach coaching, kind of with those fundamentals, I guess, those staples, to be a high energy guy, be an intense guy, be a competitor, but also just show tremendous care and support and love to my players. And that's exactly who Dean was.
So when I look at your program, Scott, how do you think you have built the culture in your program? I look at your culture and it's just off the charts. I mean, kids love playing there. They love playing for you. The way you guys play is so consistent all the time. How do you build that culture?
I really appreciate that, Joe. I do. I think our culture is something that we're continuously working on as a program, but I don't think we talk too much about it. Usually, I heard somebody say in a Zoom earlier, maybe a couple months ago, while we're going through this whole COVID process, and I was in on a Zoom, and a coach said, "Hey, if you have to talk about culture, you probably don't have it." Yeah. And I agreed with that. That was a good point. But I think the things I said earlier about what I developed and what I learned from my brother, I think are a big part of our culture. The second part of our culture is, I was a head coach for 4 years in Kingman, Arizona, before I came to Rocky Mountain High School. So I had some experience there. I also had, when I got the Rocky Mountain job, I had two tremendous assistant coaches in Roy Trippi and Glenn Schwab. And we just, we just had a vision of what we wanted our program to look like. And we never got away from that vision, Joe. I think really is the difference maker. If we had to have hard conversations with parents, we had to have hard conversations with players, whether it was the worst player or the best player. If they weren't buying in and they weren't a part of what we wanted Rocky Mountain High School baseball culture to be, we had those hard conversations. We had those tough conversations, and you were either in or you're out. We've been fortunate. We've had a lot of good kids and good families and good players, and our kids buy in, and it's been fun to watch. But it has been obviously something that I developed, but my assistant coaches have been there right there with me. Now I have Ian Wells, who played for us. I have Jake Stewart, who played for us. I have Cole Anderson, who played for us. I just have tremendous coaching staff. Yep.
So what's your favorite aspect of coaching? Is it game time? Is it practice time? Is it with the kid?
Yeah, definitely practice. I mean, I'm a firm believer that, practice is time for coaches to shine, and, games are time for the players to shine. I do love the competition that is part of the game. Don't get me wrong. But if I had to narrow it down, I love practice, Joe. And I'm, as Scott Van Pelt says on ESPN, he goes, I ain't tired yet. I just love going out and helping kids develop as baseball players. And I think that's a big part of it. But more importantly, the thing that I enjoy, and I know this is cliche and all coaches say this, but it's from my heart. And I think this, it's the relationships, and it's the difference that you can make in young men's lives. And that will always be what keeps me motivated.
So when you think about like making your schedule and all that kind of stuff, when you're making a schedule for your season and so forth, what's your main concern there?
When it comes to practice schedule and kind of how we go through things. Yeah. Well, when it comes to games, I want to play the best competition possible always. I don't believe in trying to pad schedule. I don't believe in paying attention to, for those coaches that are listening that are from Colorado, I don't believe in paying attention to RPI and all those things. I just want to be the best baseball team we can be in postseason. And I think it's really around two things, and how we try to set our practice up is every time we get on the field, we just want to be the toughest and smartest team on the field. And that's our goal. We don't set a lot of goals other than that. And I know you're similar in the way you ran Thunder Ridge High School, but we keep it pretty simple. Our schedule, whether it's in the weight room, is you're developing that toughness. And I think a big part of toughness is your mental approach to the game, your discipline, and also toughness is relationships. Because you and I both know that, and that not just with me, but with their other players. Like when you spend as much time together as we do with one another, and you see this in your family too, relationships take some toughness. I mean, you really do have to, you have to pay attention to that piece. But I think, we really just try to teach the game. I mean, we have set things at Rocky Mountain High School that we believe in, All right. And we've narrowed this down over the years. You know, I think when I first started, I was a coach that had to have every first and third play in possible, every bunt in possible, every execution thing in possible. And you know, you find yourself you know, not, you know, having a lot of things in, but not being great at a lot of things. And I think probably early in my career, somewhere around 2004, 2005, I was like, you know what, these are the things we're going to be really, really good at. And I think that has made us a smarter baseball team, you know, and I think that when we focus on toughness and IQ, that all comes from practice
Yeah.
in off season.
One of the things I've noticed, and Scott and I have been fortunate to be able to coach the junior team that goes to the Sun Belt tournament in Oklahoma. And again, when I was down there coaching those teams with Scott, I just really focused on your players, because I always thought your teams were just different. You know, they're always, it's just a different atmosphere. So I watched your kids closely, and one of the things I noticed was that they don't play with any fear at all. So what do you do to help your kids just perform without fear? I mean, they're not afraid to backpick a guy. They're not afraid to make the extra throw. They're not afraid to take the extra base. They're not afraid of the consequence of any of that. They just want to go out and play. What do you do to help that?
Yeah, thanks for noticing that, Joe. That's very important to me. I don't want kids to play with fear. I think the biggest thing that we do to teach that is we encourage them to go make plays. And our kids never, ever get, you know, disciplined or get their butt chewed for, you know, going hard and trying to make a play, whether it is a back pick or any of those things. Like you said, it's just not something we believe in. Now, if they're not hustling or they're not playing the game the right way, or they're throwing helmets, or, you know, acting like a baby, those type of things, they'll be disciplined and they'll hear it, because that goes back to the vision and culture. But boy, we encourage our guys from day one when we get them that we're a team that is not afraid to make plays, and you will never get your butt chewed for going out and trying to make a play.
And that has to come from you, though. And what I mean by that is those kids have to trust you when you tell them that. Does that make sense what I'm saying there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, and when you're instilling that in them, is there certain things that you do in practice that instills that in them?
Yeah, there is. We do a couple different things. One, we practice it. I mean, we compete a lot in practice. We try to put them in as many pressure situations in practice as we can, whether it's at the end of practice and we run our infield out there and say, hey, we got 3 ground balls we got to make a play on, you know. But it's also practicing what you preach. I mean, we had a situation this summer where we lost a game because we had bases loaded and our catcher tried to back hit a kid with 2 outs at first base. And a lot of coaches would be like, why are you making that throw, you know, and get in their ear. And he threw it into right field and we lost the game. All right. And we went out to our team meeting at the end and I told him, great job, you know, because that's who we want to be. And you can't be wishy-washy as a coach, as you know, Joe. You can't be just built around winning and losing. You know, it would have been real easy for me to go out there and get upset and tell him that it was a terrible time to make that throw. But that's not who we are, because we want our kids to play without fear.
And I think that's a perfect story on my question. I think that illustrates it perfectly. Now, let me ask you this. How would you translate that over to the business world? If you were running a business, like Jake Stewart, you mentioned him, is in the business world. How do you want him to run his business?
Yeah. You know what? I think that's such a great point, Joe, and something I really haven't thought about. But, I mean, we're in the business of developing young men to go out in the real world someday. And I talk more with our players about being a father and a great husband and those things someday. But I do understand they're going to be in the business world. And I hope, you know, that toughness and that IQ and attacking their life without fear and not being afraid to make mistakes is something they would take into the business world. And I'm not a business guy, so I can't speak to that specifically or give you an example, but I would hope that our guys would take something from baseball and put it into their career as well. And that's a big one.
Yeah. I always think that what we do in coaching is a direct reflection to get them ready for what they're going to face if they own a business or work for a business. I always looked at it this way: when a kid graduated from our program, if I owned a business, would I hire them?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and did I do a
Yep.
good enough job that I would feel comfortable hiring that guy and kid and trying to help him transition over into the business world? And I think sports helps us do that in a great way. Um,
Couldn't agree more, Joe. And I think that the part of, if you keep that mindset, you keep that focus, all right, you're not going to get burned out as an educator or a coach, you know. But if you are, you know, if your mindset is, and it's easy for me to say I get it because we've won a lot of games and won some state championships, but I mean, I think there's a lot more to winning. I think there is a lot more to developing young man than just what the scoreboard says at the end of the day. I really do.
yeah,
In fact, go ahead.
and well, that's a perfect example of what you just said. When your catcher backpicked first base and overthrew and lost the game, and you rewarded him afterwards by telling him great job. You're telling him it's okay to go for it. It's
Yeah.
okay to do that because fear is a natural thing. Everyone has fear. And one of my hardest things as a coach was coaching kids who were who you could see the fear was paralyzing them out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just threw me over the edge because I knew that when they went for their first interview and they were going for that job that they desperately wanted and everything else, they couldn't go into that paralyzed. They couldn't go into that with fear. So using the game to help teach that so that when they went into those situations, they could do it better. And that's exactly what you did when you told that kid, great job. It's such a great example of allowing your kids to grow.
Yep.
And,
You know, and I think the other thing too, Joe, and maybe correct me if you don't see this, but I see other coaches that are afraid to coach that, the fear
yes.
piece of it, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I think it all starts with honesty. You know, I have a little saying in my office, and it's from Gary Kubiak. It's like, you know, the development growth always starts with honesty.
Right.
And if you see that fear in a kid, you absolutely 100% have to approach him with
Mm-hmm.
it. And I think some coaches shy away from that for whatever reason, but that's a big part of their development.
It's huge. And I always have a saying that character wins. So when you told that kid it was great job, that helped develop his character even more because he knew that that gained confidence in himself for the next time he might do it and he's going to get the guy out.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
what you want, and that's what we want for these kids in life. And so cool. Um, what three events do you think shaped you most? Three events in your life, and you've had. This is where I really want to dive into. If you're okay diving into this, what three events shaped you most in your life? You mentioned your mom passed when you were 6, your brother with his accident. I know your dad has passed. Is there anything other than those?
Well, I'll start, as you know, and the guy that we haven't got a chance to talk about yet is my son, who's a 16-year-old Tag. And Tag is a dual diagnosis Down syndrome and autism young man. And I think him being born is the one that has shaped me more than anything else. I think I've learned more in his life about unconditional love and patience and, like, you know, what's truly important. And he was our first child. Um, so I think that would be the number one event. Even though I was already coaching, he was born. I mean, I'd had a few years under my belt, but he was born in 2004. And I think the difference that him coming into my life made for me as a coach was probably tremendous, you know, in ways that I don't even know, you know,
Oh,
that I don't even know.
it's a
But
perspective
um,
piece.
yeah, that was one event for sure. I think my brother passing away, you know, because he was just such a huge part of my life, was another event that happened in my life that yeah, you know, I don't know if it developed me, but it made me realize really what it meant to miss somebody and how important your relationships are on every day and everybody you encounter and the people that you love to cultivate that every day, because I miss him so much. And, I don't know. I don't know the other event, maybe, from a coaching standpoint, I really felt like in 2005, we had one of the best teams in the state. My first year as coach at Rocky Mountain, we went 21-3, and you guys won it that year and beat a great Heritage team that was unbelievably talented. And that was 2004. And then 2005, I felt like we had one of the best teams, if not the best team in the state, and went to the state tournament and just didn't play well. We just didn't play well, went 1-2. And I think that really motivated me to just become a better coach, just to work harder, but there's probably a lot of events for sure that have been a difference maker.
Okay. So here's kind of a deep question. I look at you, and this is probably in my mind, the greatest compliment I could give anybody, is that you remind me of more than anybody I've ever known, like my dad. My dad's been through a lot of different situations that I can't get into now, but a lot of similar things. And I look at your outlook on life and his outlook on life a lot similar. They're very similar. How do you stay so positive through all that you've been through? I mean, you lose your mom at 6, your brother gets paralyzed, you lost your father, you lost your brother, tag came along. Yeah. I know that had to be a big surprise and all those things. How do you stay so positive and so uplifting for everyone else that's around you? Because that's what you do.
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, that's the biggest compliment that I can receive too, because I know Willie White and he's one of my favorite people in the world. So for you to say that gives me goosebumps. But it's simple, Joe. I from the time I was 6 years old until, I left home at 18, 19 years old, I got to live with my brother. And I saw how he approached every day of life in a wheelchair, had to have somebody get him out of bed, help him take a bath, wash his hair, brush his teeth, shave him, get him out of the house. And I mean, he had his days, that he felt sorry for himself, but man, they were few and far between, Joe. They really were. And I think that growing up and seeing how positive he was in his situation just came natural to me.
Yeah,
I really do. I don't think it's something that I put a lot of thought into. No. I just think that his life has had that impact on me because that was him 100%.
So his perspective on life was, it could be worse.
He's alive,
Yeah.
He was alive. He was able to, it was so cool because he coached Little League and Babe Ruth baseball. He broadcast, in small towns, everything's on the radio. He broadcast sports on the radio. He never was able to he went to University of Wyoming, got his teaching degree. He was never able to be a full-time teacher because it was just too much on his butt and his back as far as those, pressure sores. People in wheelchairs deal with pressure sore, but he substitute taught in my hometown. Like, he drove right down the middle of the street in his electric wheelchair. It was, he could have felt really sorry for himself. And he just kept on, being positive every day and grinding and making the most out of a really tough situation.
Yeah. And he made life better for everyone else around him.
Big time.
And big time. And I'll be honest with you, that's how I see you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We just had my nephew, my oldest sister's youngest, got married this last weekend, and there were so many stories. 8-9 years after Dean passes away, about Dean. We still just talk about him so much, and he was just a difference maker on so many lives.
And that's kind of as a coach, or not even just as a coach, but as a leader of anything, as a coach, a leader of a school, a leader of a business, or anything. Isn't that what you want all of your guys to do, that you coach?
Man,
make a difference in people's lives.
Yep. Big time. That's it.
And you talk about tag. What kind
Yep.
of difference has tag made in your players' lives?
I think I want to believe it's been tremendous. You know, he's out at the baseball field. He's at least at the end of every practice. He's out riding the gator and helping me drag the field and do all those things. You know, because of tag, I got our players very involved with Respite, which is a home, or it's not a home. It's an organization that allows parents to, for a really good rate, drop off their kids and have some respite, you know, from having a child with special needs. And a lot of the community service and those things that we do as a baseball program are with Respite. And so not just tag, but a lot of other kids with special needs. I think it is, you know, you talk about for younger coaches out there, you know, get them involved with kids with special needs, get them involved with anything, but it's super rewarding to watch them work with special needs kids and leave there happier than when they got there, for
Yeah.
sure. Always, every time.
This will probably be the last one. What's the thing you're most proud about in your life?
Definitely the father that I am, and the husband second behind that. Proud of my faith, but the type of it's hard to narrow it down. Probably the type of father that I am. I take a lot of pride in that, but it's just the type of friend I am. You know, it's all those things. That's what I'm most proud of.
For you, it would be your positive influence on not just your players, but all people that you're around. And because you've had a huge influence on my life. What are you most thankful for?
You know, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is my family, but I think it's just the life that God's given me, you know, to be able to be a difference maker in people's lives and get to do with it what I get to do.
I think there's the number one goal for everyone in life should be to figure out what your gifts are and grow your gifts to help people. So using your gifts to help people. And 70% of Americans are disengaged at work. And that saddens me because it means 7 out of 10 people go to work every day and they hate what they do. So when I watch you and watch you work and do the things that you do, you're definitely not one of those 7 out of 10.
No.
So I look at somebody who's using his gifts and has expanded his gifts to serve others. And I commend you on that because you do such an unbelievable job. How much does your faith play into all of that?
I think it plays into it. You know, I can't say because I feel like I was using my gifts before I became real strong. And I grew up in church. My dad always made us go to church, but it really wasn't until about 2012, 2013 that I got back into going to church and really putting focus back on my faith. You know, I think the Bible just teaches you the difference between right and wrong. And it's been a huge difference for me. And, you know, just, you know, getting up in the morning, you know, I have, you know, I have my faith and I have heaven someday to look forward to.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. Well, I'll let you go. This has been fun. If there's any other questions, I'm going to call you back and maybe add on to this, but
Yeah.
It's been enlightening to me because like I said, I have watched you from the other side and gotten to coach with you on the same side, both.
Yeah.
And it's just been so fun. And I don't want to sound like I'm creepy or anything because when I sit there and say I study you, but I study you and your players and your program because I look at you as a leader. I look at your program and I look at it as it's what every organization, whether it's athletics, business, or whatever organization it is, could model themselves after. And that's why I study it so much, because that's what I want to try to help people do is to, I know that the kids who play for you enjoy playing for you. So when we look at that 7 out of 10 that are disengaged at work, how many of us as coaches or leaders can say that about our team or our organization? That 7 out of 10 are disengaged. And if we can say that, there's something wrong. When I
Right.
look at your organization, I look at it as, I bet you if we asked 10 out of 10, we would have a 10 out of 10 that are engaged and love being there and love playing there.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that is so hard to get anymore. And watching you do it, and it transcends not just with your sport, but all across. So I
Yeah.
hope this can help others learn how to do some of that so that people can enjoy what they do a little bit more. So thanks for doing this. I know we've been trying to do it for a long time. I'm not any kind of professional.
You've done a great job, Joe.
Uh,
You know what? I would like to say one more thing is I listened to what you said there at the end, and um, I think a lot of what it evolves around. And I can be tough on kids, I can,
yeah. Oh
but
yeah. It's
I
not
don't I
touchy
don't
feely.
no, but I don't ever let them go home not knowing they're loved
Right.
by me and loved by our program and them, whether they're the best player or the 18th player on an 18-man roster, that they're important. I will not let them go home without knowing that it's a safe place for them and they'll be
Huge.
loved.
And again, like I just said, it's not a touchy feely situation where everything's roses. There are times where we have to push kids and we have to challenge kids and we have to get on them a little bit to get them to do what we know is what's best for them. Not only what's best for them on the field, for me and for you too, I'm sure it's what's going to be best for them later on, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Because those expectations that you put on your players now, if they think those are high expectations, wait till they get married, wait till they have a job and they're working for somebody and all those things. So those expectations that you're putting on them to meet and match your culture that you're building there is something that is so beneficial to them 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road.
No
So
question.
amazing
Yeah.
what you do. It's just amazing. So, all right, buddy. It was great talking to you. This has been awesome. We might have to do another one when I think up some more questions and stuff. But
Yeah. I'm in anytime. I love
this is
talking
awesome.
about this stuff and talking baseball and
Oh, it's
getting to
awesome.
visit with you, Joe. So
It's awesome.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Have a good day.
All right. You too. See you,
Thank
Joe.
you. Bye.
Bye.